This is FoosWeek, folks. I'm Adam Gilson. There's Hannah Smith. There's Tom Robinson. I don't know if you can hear a tiny little child in the background, but that's my son being just as cute as a button as he is.
Bring him on the show. Come on, bring him over.
You know what? He might just show up. You know, Tuesday night is our night.
Cool.
My wife's out at doing her thing. She's in an orchestra. Tuesday nights are orchestra rehearsals, so I do this, and Avery does what he does, and we're all here. So we have a great show lined up here tonight. Tom, how you doing?
It's it's a progress report when it comes to me personally. I'm hanging in there. Let's put it that way. Banging 10 last night, doing my best at the Monday night tournament, and coming in second again. Trying my hardest to make it, to first place every week, but just just a little bit short of the mark. But that's okay. I'm going to keep trying. Um, as I was telling one of our guests who's going to be on later, I'm going to play till I'm 85, which is what, 2 years from now. No, wait, I'm sorry. It's
No,
five
that's not good math. And and I was going to say something about what you just said, Tom. You said something.
Who keeps beating you, Tom?
Yeah. What's their names?
Is it the same guy or is it someone else?
Well, this week it was a little different. We had Jeff Scarchilli and Dave Hetzer were the opposing team last night, and we tried to double dip them. We had a good chance. I was playing with Mike Delbone, who's a really terrific pole shooter, and we were connecting, and we did well to get to where we had to fight through the losers bracket to get back to the finals, but you know we were fired up. Just not quite enough big enough fire, I guess. But it's a little different every week. We got a good variety of players, and so I can't blame them. It's me.
Like that
Just a
Taylor
little.
Swift song. I love that song. What? Don't judge. Anyways, so we had this past weekend was Wisconsin State, right? And we're going to talk to somebody, I don't know yet who. I don't want to name their name now, but we talked about it before the show tonight. And we're going to ask them if they want to come on next Tuesday.
Cool.
And just see how that went. I love that venue. I love that tournament. And that's something that's on my list to go to next year. And something we're going to talk about later, our second guest, is going to be something I'm going to this year for the first time. This weekend is Oklahoma State. That's Tommy Adkisson will be with us a little bit later. But before we move on, and before we invite our first
What
guest
about
of the
Hannah?
evening,
What's up
yeah,
with Hannah? We got to know what's happening
Hannah,
with
you
you.
didn't say anything. Did I just ignore you?
You did.
I'm so sorry.
Good.
I think it's a little bit jumpy. Are you hearing that, Tom?
It is. Yeah, it's a little broken up. I think we're having the same issue we had last week.
Might be an
Might want to
internet.
reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah, could very well be that. Yeah, hearing very little of your speech. So we just need just a reboot. There we go. Stuff like this happens all the time. It's live.
It's live.
It's what goes on.
I'm just curious,
But
Tom. You were
yes.
in the business for like decades, right? As we wait
Mhm.
for Hannah to come back, I want to wait a minute before we bring on our guest and everything. But what's the biggest foul up that you've ever experienced in your entire
Oh,
career in live
you really want to
broadcasting?
know?
I
You
think
really want to hear
I
that?
think we all want to know. And by the way, people that are out there, by all, anybody at Twitch joining us this evening, if you have any questions for us or our guests, I've got my eye on the stream. We can go from there. But
I
Tom,
can. Okay. Very simply, I was doing overnights back in 1990. Uh, Big main rock station in upstate New York, in Utica, New York. And I might have been there for a year at that point, but overnights was midnight to 6 a.m. So I drank coffee, and back in those days, I smoked cigarettes just to keep me going. And so about 3 o'clock in the morning one evening, I was, it was probably in the middle of the week, and I was playing, back in those days, we played vinyl records. So I was in the chair at the booth and getting ready, for I was preparing for the next break and whatever. And for some reason, my consciousness slipped away and I fell asleep. And I woke up to the sound of the record going, ch-ch, at the end of the record. It played all the way through, and it was an album. So there was at least 3 songs that it played before I finally regained consciousness and woke up and realized for the last, who knows, 3 or 4 minutes, it was just going, and whoever is listening at 3 in the morning was going, "Hey man, that guy fell asleep. What's the deal?" And I woke up, I snapped out of it, and then of course, got another record on. But that's probably the most embarrassing moment I can think of.
You didn't get, obviously you didn't get fired.
Well, nobody was hearing me from the management, so I never told anybody.
Nobody actually called in and said, "Hey, that dude passed out for."
Oh, the phone was ringing. Yes, the phone was ringing. So I picked up the listener line, and guys, they were just laughing, like, "Hey, man, do you know that your your record's stuck or something?" But yeah, so that was most embarrassing. Try not to do that again.
Wow. I think Hannah's almost back with us. Real quick though, because now I have to ask the other thing, because that was very polite. But what's the one where like the guest, like what famous person? Because I know you talked to all kinds of famous rock stars. Come on, at that
Yes.
point, are we past the statute of limitations on that? Can we hear one, just one little one, a little one?
Oh, you mean as far as like who was good, who was bad? That
No,
kind
what
of thing?
rock star was just a complete jerk?
Oh, that's easy. Stephen Stills, just an
Crosby,
absolute.
Stills, and Nash. Stills.
Yeah, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, complete jerk.
Really?
Complete jerk. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
In what
Just not a
sense?
nice person. Well, when I was told before I had to go backstage and I had to introduce the show. It was Stephen Stills band in Albany, New York, and when I was told about my chores for the night, I was supposed to go out on stage and introduce the band, and they said, my boss said, "Don't talk to Stephen Stills. Just don't do it, because he's not a nice person." I said, "Okay, I'll give him his distance. I won't say anything." But there was a security guard backstage in those days that I knew pretty well from other shows. And so he and I were talking, and Stephen Stills came out of his dressing room, was standing against the wall waiting for the show to start. And we were just about to begin. And so the security guard goes, "Hey, there's Stephen. I've got to go say hi." I said, I don't think you should do that, man. I've heard he's not a very nice person." He's like, "No, no, no, I'm going to go say hi." So the guy walks up and it puts his hand out to Stephen Stills and said, "Hey, Stephen, hey, man, I love your stuff. I'm a huge fan. Hey, I saw you back in 1978 on Long Island. And I'm just, and Stephen just looked him in the eye and said, 'You think I effing remember that?' And walked
Ooh,
away."
nice. Hannah, we
So
were talking about the some of the worst experiences that Tom has had in his radio history, and meeting Steven still sounds like it was up there.
I didn't personally meet him. I just
Yeah,
watched what he
you
was
just
doing.
watched. Well, yeah,
Yeah, that's all I needed. That was it.
that's the same
That,
way that I feel
yeah.
about a box of kitty litter. I don't want to meet it. I just kind of want to watch it, make sure it doesn't get too
Just,
full.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Hannah, you're
Anyway.
back. How have you been? How are you doing?
Hey, well, hopefully I sound a little bit better.
Sounds perfect.
Much better.
Hopefully that wasn't the worst thing that you've had in your radio history,
No,
Tom. I'm sorry.
he once passed out in the middle of a broadcast, so I think we're
Oh,
fine. A little restart,
okay,
a little
good.
restart's good.
I fell asleep during a
Okay,
shift. What can
good.
I tell you?
Yeah,
It
we've all been
happens.
there.
It happens.
But Hannah, you're
But
good?
yeah,
Yeah.
I had a long weekend of softball. It was pretty much it was all weekend. So you started Friday at 7 p.m. with co-ed, and it finished on 7 a.m. Saturday. So you went through the night for co-ed, and then you started a women's tournament at 9 a.m. and then it went to 6 p.m. Sunday. So it was like a lot
Wow.
of no sleep and softball, but it was great. It was a good time.
How is that similar sometimes? I mean, because you go to foosball tournaments all the time, and it's like a marathon. From you get there, like say on a Thursday and leave on a Tuesday. Is it's softball similar when it comes to the demand on your psyche?
No, it's usually not. Usually, even if you play a duel, you're playing a tournament Friday and then you play one, Saturday or Sunday, but you have enough rest time that it's not too terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is like an all-nighter tournament that's once a year. It's a benefit tournament for a little boy who passed away, and it's for his family. It's a really
Oh.
cool
Oh, nice.
idea. So, it's like 15 years this has been going. So it's a super cool idea, and everybody shows up to support. But it's just a small tournament that we really have a lot of fun at.
I don't think we've ever asked you what position do you play in the game?
Pretty much anywhere. I like to play outfield more, but
Hmm.
lately they've been making me play infield. So I play middle infield, or center or left in the outfield.
What's your batting average?
I don't know. It was really good this weekend. I know that. It was good.
How many home
Um,
runs do you have in your career?
Wow.
well, I'm not
Tom.
really a home run hitter. I'm a little girl compared to the big dogs. But I have hit a few in conference, so that's a big deal. Because
Nice.
the fences are way longer than, like college fences. They're
Oh
like
yeah.
120 feet farther than a college fence. So
Wow.
a little different.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it's
I don't
huge.
even like walking 120 feet. That's pretty cool.
I can relate.
Yeah, I'm not even joking. But wow. So I think it's probably time that we bring in our first guest and get a chance to hear about all the excitement, because I'm sitting here in my Southern California home, and it has been cold and wet and rainy. I swear I've been in Seattle for the last month. But I hear tell of somebody that has been in warmer, nicer climes,
Oh
and that would
yeah.
be Mr. Terry Rue. Terry, you there?
Hola. Yes,
Hola.
I'm here.
Whoa, you picked up the language.
Hola.
Terry, it's a pleasure to have you here tonight. You were just in Costa Rica. You were at the Costa Rica Summer Beach Tournament.
Summer Beach.
Beach
Yes.
Tournament. Just, there's so much. I don't know. Whatever you want to say. How was it?
So the lead into it is that Brandon Munoz and I have become really, really good friends. And he's my instructor for Spanish. I've always wanted to learn another language.
Awesome.
I realized how valuable it was when we've had the benefit of going to Europe and playing tournaments there. Some of those guys will speak 4 to 6 languages and apologize because their English isn't very good.
Wow.
But I have a lot of Spanish speaking friends. So Brandon has helped me answered questions. He messages me on the daily only in Spanish. So it forces me to learn. So I went there not being nervous because I knew I could communicate if I had to. And so that was the perfect start. I didn't have to go into it being nervous. But man, just from the onset, when you land, you can tell the kindness of the people of that country. That stood out drastically. And then the next thing you notice is once you make it out of an airport there, that the traffic situation is different than what we're accustomed to, say, here in the South.
Oh.
Oh, yes. So they drive motorcycles differently than I've ever seen. So you can have a 2-lane road and say we're going to meet Brandon and at a restaurant. We're all getting together, and as you drive, there's a motorcycle on the left and 3 motorcycles on the right, and they zoom in and out of traffic. They don't have the white marker lines in the roads to designate what's the correct lane you're supposed to be in.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yes. And then you sprinkle in some of the yield type situations in the roundabouts, and it makes for an excellent adventure just to start. Oh man! So
Well,
that was an experience in itself, just to
yeah,
start.
riding with Brandon is an experience within itself in America. So I can definitely imagine in Costa Rica. Like we hopped in the truck one night and we were all like, let's go to Whataburger. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'll drive. And we're like, okay. So we go and we're like merging, and then we're in like Texas or somewhere crazy where there's traffic everywhere. And like he just like goes on a on ramp to like merge and just stops. Like that's it.
Yeah.
And we were like, you can't do that, buddy.
So there is a reason their entrance ramps to their interstate system literally is 25-yard entrance ramp, and it just stops. And then when you can merge, You basically punch it and you ease in. The other thing you realize is that 10 kilometers in Costa Rica, pretty much anywhere, is equal to about an hour and 30 minutes of your time.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Interesting.
Yeah, because he would send me a link like, you're only 10 kilometers away. And I'd say, why does it say an hour and 30 minutes time to get to you? He goes, that's the Costa Rican way.
What is it? Is it too
Wow.
windy, or like why is that like
So-
that?
There are a lot of tolls that you have to navigate.
Oh,
They don't have, like in most of the country, they don't have an interstate system comparable to what we drive on. So there's a lot of merging of a 2-lane to a 1-lane. And as you're navigating through, say, the volcanic areas, when you're inclining, it's a lot of short, winding roads. So you, at that point, you'll see the double lines where you can't pass. And if you get stuck behind a diesel truck or a bulldozer, like a dump truck, you're stuck for the length of time that they're driving to wherever they're going. So you can literally drive 15 to 20 miles an hour.
that's that sounds like an entertainment unto itself.
It is. We would actually, some of the stuff we'd see, we would say, look, we're going to add that to our Costa Rican adventure. Like we saw a lady on a motorcycle with probably a 3-year-old on the handlebars and a 5 or 6-year-old holding on mom's waist, and they're just cruising around through traffic. And then after we noticed that, we look and there's 4 children in the passenger seat of a van, unrestrained, leaning on the dashboard, waving at people as they drive by.
Wow.
So it was a unique adventure to start.
So
that sounds like the 1960s here in America.
It exactly was. And when you pull up to the gas station, they walk up and they do full service, clean your windshield, fill your vehicle up, tire pressures, and the like.
There
Just
you
like
go.
we were in the 50s or 60s.
wow.
Yep, that's exactly it.
So Terry,
Cool.
so for the tournament itself, because I know when you flew in, you had to have flown into San Jose, right? That's the
I did.
capital.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And then I know that it's in Jaco. Am I saying that correctly? Jaco?
Correct. Jaco.
Jaco. So, but that's like an hour and a half ish away, right?
So that's 3 hours away.
3 hours.
And if you were driving on one of our interstate systems, it would take you an hour and 15 minutes.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is far removed from where so it's totally a destination event.
Absolutely.
Obviously. Yeah.
And it would be like taking I-10 and taking it all the way to Florida straight. You would hit Jacksonville right on the beach by the Cracker Barrel kind of thing. This is the same thing. You drive straight in and you hit the ocean, and it's on the Pacific side.
Wow. So, paint us the picture. What's it like? What's it look like? What is it?
So it's you have a lot of mom and pop type little tienda, little stores. There's a lot of fruit, a lot of produce. The culture is everywhere. There are people walking everywhere, smiling. Just kind of, you get this warmth feeling. And then when you pull into Jaco, you kind of see the more industrialized things. They may have like a store synonymous to Walmart or a Lowe's, but it would be their brand. And then there's hotels that kind of cascade along the beach, the run of the beach. The area where we were when we went down, it was like kind of a volcanic ash, black beach. It was beautiful. The sand was real powdery, or that consistency was powdery and soft. And then my first mistake was made, and it was that I decided to take my shirt off, just go in my regular shorts. And I planned on just jumping in the water for a little bit. And then 3 hours later, I realized that I was blistering. So that's how I navigated my first couple of hours in Jaco.
Blistering. Now, what is the blistering?
Blistering, like my shirt was 3 days later was stuck to the skin of my shoulders, kind of blistered.
Oh, dude.
Oh no,
Fun.
I did it really good.
Oh, blistered from sunburn. That's what you mean.
From sunburn, yes, sir.
Oh, dude.
And when the tournament and you meet everybody, they want to hug you and tap you on your back, right?
Oh.
You can
Oh
imagine.
yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Ugh.
And you're someone who's used to being in the sun, correct?
What's that?
You're used to being in the sunshine. I mean, that's not something I mean,
Well, with clothes on, yes. With the shirt on, not necessary. I mean, we go swimming and we go to local beaches, but we're at the equator there. And
yeah.
so like the word is humido, which is humid. The humidity was like 90%. It's the closest you can be without it raining, as humid as it is.
Wow.
And you can feel the difference because you're at that area, the equator. The heat hits you differently, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So while you guys were there, I got several, Snapchats from Isabel or like any of my friends, and she was like, "I'm literally melting." Like, just sitting there doing nothing. How was it playing foosball there? Was it like super sweaty, or was it? Did it affect the balls or the table or the play in any way, or is it not really a big factor?
All of the above. The first thing you notice is it saps that bouncy energy that we're accustomed to having in a I guess an 8 or 10% humidity environment in air conditioning. So the balls felt a little bouncier. But what you notice is when you start playing, you go from doubles to singles. You don't realize how much more energy expenditure you burn when you play singles than when you just get to stand there and hold the rods playing doubles. Um, this is a great story. So they call me and Michele Nasty up on table number 5, and I walk up, and he's barefooted, and he says, "Terry, I'm going to apologize. I have to play shirtless." And so he pulls his shirt off, and here I am playing one of my friends shirtless in singles. And
I
it
was
is,
gonna ask about that because I saw several people doing that through the tournament,
yeah,
like through pictures. Like they had like 2 or 3 of them
yeah,
playing each other in no shirts, no shoes,
that was
just playing.
Rolando and Michael Stahl. They were playing shirtless. So everyone there had a beach towel just to dry off, like consistently between balls, you dry off. After about 2 days of it, you kind of start getting accustomed to it. The thing was, your relative dehydration happens faster. So I was pushing water, and it's like I couldn't catch up. So I went to this little bar area, and Tony had this beautiful drink, and I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Agua de sandia." So it's water of the watermelon, basically. And he says, "Here, have it. I'm done." And I sip this drink. It's non-alcoholic, but I sip it, and it's like all my energy came back. So I walked over to the bar and I said, "I would like a large one." And I think I drank 4 a day. And at that point,
Wow.
I felt like the old me. It's amazing how fast that one drink did that.
This
Um,
this is probably a tradition for people who live there. They know about this thing.
they
They
know
probably
about that. All
yeah.
their natural fruit beverages. They make a difference, and I know they know about it.
Mhm.
But yeah, drying off it's strange how fast you waterlog your grips. We're not accustomed to that happening.
Ah,
So you kind of just get used to it being a little heavier, and you just roll with it.
Sure. So I know I tried to watch several of the matches, through the week that they were broadcasting. Super cool. Brandon Munoz was on. He was commentating some in Spanish and in English, and that was always enjoyable for me to kind of, pick through that as I can understand enough of him
Yeah.
in Spanish that I can kind of keep up and follow. That's awesome. But I didn't get a ton of time to watch a lot of matches. What were some of your favorite matches to watch or to play or you heard about throughout the weekend?
So of course, anytime Brandon and Tony play, and they played a lot this weekend. So those were highlights of the weekend. Here's a unique perspective about Costa Rica. And I kind of saw it when I started playing against Brandon and Kevin, because and Carlos, they were the guys that we first were exposed to here in the States. When you play a Costa Rican, they're going to play with all of their heart, and the first ball is going to feel like a 4-4 ball at a world championship. That's
wow.
how hard they play. And I admire that, and I love that about them. Um, So the uniqueness of that tournament is you can walk and find any table being played, and you're going to hear "vamos, vamos, vamos," and
Yeah.
it's fiery. I don't know if I've ever walked that much around just regular tables, non-pit tables, and just watched beautiful matches being played with like World Cup type passion. For like a second round match. That's kind of like the take home about Costa Rica, is that this the passion. It's something that they didn't have, that they built in their own, and their style is so unique to them. The passion.
So is
Sure, I think they have a lot of pride in their game.
They do.
I think we get to see that anytime they play, and it's pride for their country and their team, and those that came before them, and their dads that set the tone. And I got to see that firsthand. At Worlds, you get to see that. That was a different taste, and all of Costa Rica coming together. So I could only imagine what it is like in Costa Rica when everyone is fiery, and they're so prideful of their country and what they've built in foosball. And here comes the U.S. people to come and check
Right.
it out. Like, how can you not be fired up? Like, that's truly amazing. Sorry to interrupt you there, Adam. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's fine. I'm just trying to think. Is so when you talk about that level of intensity there, Terry, in Costa
Mhm.
Rica, and I know I've talked to Brandon about this, about like every ball is match point, right? Championship point, right? For everything. And do you think? I mean, is everybody there? Is it like they're? What am I trying to say? It's like is Brandon an example of how the entire country plays, or does the entire country play like that because of the example Brandon has set? If that makes sense.
It makes sense. The country follows the leader, if you will. Kind of, it's synonymous with, if you go to a certain state, your big guy there, you're going to see a lot of the younger players coming up kind of pattern to that game and that style. That it's kind of one of the little things I do if I play somebody I don't know. I say, "Where are you from? Who do you play with?" That gives me an inclination of what they're used to seeing.
Mm.
Probably their foosball IQ. And so for the Costa Ricans, I think it's one and the same, honestly. So I had the honor of meeting one of their players from the 1970s, and I feel so bad that I didn't remember his name. He played against
Marcio
Mike
Bonilla.
Bauer. That's him.
Yeah.
He was such a gentleman, such a kind man. And I just got to sit with him and speak history of the game. I was able to meet one of their pros that has been playing for a while. In his game, he shot a pull. It was a little more American, like U.S. traditional pull shooter, take his time, almost like a Texas pull shooter kind of player. But other than that, everyone else is fiery. One thing is, as well, is if you try some kind of little snazzy shot on these guys, you better be able to hit it like Brandon, or they're going to block it. Like, you don't just get tricky and clever on them and think that it's going to work. They hold you accountable, and you have to earn every shot against the Costa Rican players.
Yeah, I like the comparison when it comes to what Brandon does when he comes here to the United States, and his fiery play, his quickness. I think, especially in the very beginning, before he started to crack the top 10, I think there was a lot of people saying he needs to slow down. So, do you think that's good advice for someone like Brandon, or is his speed now dominating?
So there's a difference between wasted and reckless,
Mm-hmm.
and structured within a game plan. And I think the speed of the game has slowed down for him, and he understands when to use his speed to an to take as an advantage over a play.
There was people in the crowd saying, "Yeah, he's quick, all right, but he's like you say, he was a little bit reckless and maybe trying too hard at times." But boy, he's matured significantly in those 2 years.
He has a good example in a different way would be like a Frederic Collignon. When he came, the game that he developed over the next 12 years, that game was not the game he came to the country with.
Ah,
And you got to see the maturity of what he learned that would work on our table. And he learned it from the greatest ever, Todd Alfredo. But Brandon has played literally every tournament that you can go to. It doesn't matter if it's like a North Dakota, backyard state. He's going to go. And so he's developing the skills, the mindset of what it takes to win at a more consistent level. And then he adjusts his style accordingly so that he still derives benefit from what he does, because he's not going to want to stop doing the things that make him him, obviously. He wants to refine those things so that he still stays fiery. He still feels like he is himself, but it's paying off at a more consistent rate. That's kind of what I've seen in his game.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that as well. And it's so different to watch him play and like shift gears almost in regards to how the match is going and who you're playing with and who he's playing with. And it just kind of unfolds. It's like, what story am I going to get today? Am I going to get, quick and fast, or am I going to get, slow brush pass on the 5 and, takes us a little bit more time on the 3 than you expect? But he has so many options. And I think learning, like you said, learning how to use those is definitely key to his success. But it's been so fun watching that come into his game because, like first got here, it really wasn't there. It was just quick, quick, quick. And now he's learning and maturing in his game. And it's really cool to watch, playing against him, how he works through things like with that.
Yeah. The game has, obviously the game has slowed down for him. It was slow anyway because of his speed, but it has. He's his thought process has matured, and that you can see it in his game.
So, go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to say, is there anything you're noticing about Brandon's game right now that he's borrowing from other players, and who might that be?
He's a sponge. He's getting it from everybody.
Okay.
We were all playing, and we watched Billy does some little waggle pass, and we're all laugh about it. And then the next match, I see Brandon using it in different variations.
Ah.
He's the perfect chameleon right now. Like just certain little ways that he's tic-tacking, certain types of dinks. He's not just always depending on, say, a fast pull kick anymore. He's adding variety in it. Some of the other things are like, if he's in a brush series, he's starting to understand now that, look, if they're going to kind of stall somewhere, he can still use his speed. It just has to be a deceptive way of getting to his speed. And that's adding depth in his game. Those are the kind of things that I'm seeing.
Well, that's
so what did you learn from Costa Rica? Did you have any like things that really stuck out that you're like, when I'm coming home, I'm going to remember this, or I'm going to remember that? It could be about, anything in Spanish that you didn't know before, or, cuisine or location or foosball or just anything.
So that an analogy I would use is it's like trying to sip water through a fire hydrant. There are so many things that I took home with me that it's so many that it's almost hard to kind of just pick a few because there's so many. I'm humbled, and I realize how blessed we are here in the States. That stood out to me, and it might be my age that I'm older. The appreciation for what we're blessed with in this country. And then the respect of what the pride in their country, the kindness that they show everyone in that country. And just like you learn what the average wage is over there. And it's heartbreaking. And the people still give when they have nothing. That was like walking down the street and asking a lady what this certain type of fruit was and where I could get one. And she goes, a key, like, here, take it. And I said, no, or I'll pay you. And she goes, no, un regalo. It's a gift. And this lady who doesn't have that much gives something to us, that have so many things, and we're so blessed. that's probably the biggest take home of it. I'm just humbled, and I just come back and I want to work harder and be a better person and be a better version of me. Um, that stood out. I love the passion that they have with anything they do. When you go to that food center, um, it's wild because it's down this dark alley and it's gated, and it's kind of a shady looking area, and it's at night, and then the gate opens and you drive in, and it's in this kind of like a shop warehouse area. And they built this from scratch, and they built their own center that is
Huh.
a beautiful place to play foosball. Um, and they did it with the help of some friends that have a little extra money, and they supported it. And they have tables and posters, and it's filled with life. And they barbecue steaks, and it's some of the best
Ooh.
steaks you'll ever have. And it's a fraternity, and that's the kind of thing that brings the joy of foosball back into me.
Wow. That is
And
so.
you can't, it happens naturally. And they have that, and I just have so much respect for those guys. And yeah, I would absolutely go back tomorrow if I had another 2 weeks off just to experience it again. On a down note, the only thing that was bothered me was that I actually traveled for the first time without my wife maybe in 30
Hmm.
years, and
Mm.
my daughters weren't with me, and that was heartbreaking. So that was a new adventure for me, to start anyway. And I love Keish obviously to death. She's my best friend, and she would message me and say, "Terry, stop worrying about it. Go have fun. Like, you don't take proper vacations, you never relax." Because normally when I go to a vacation, I have to do call to get time off, and then when I get back, like, I'm leaving early, I can't stay and enjoy, and I have to come back into call. So this might have been the first time in 17 years of doing what I do that I was able to go early and stay late. So that
Cool.
was really nice, and I just felt so relaxed, and I didn't think about anything but just enjoying the place where I was and the people I was around.
That's awesome, Terry. Before we've got to bring in our other guest here shortly. Tommy Adkisson has joined us in the back wings, talked to us about Oklahoma State. But I just wanted to ask you for potential attendees from the states next year. Is there like a top 3, 4, 5 bits of advice or things that you'd wish you'd known or something to prepare for, kind of thing for them to think about?
Going to Costa Rica, you mean?
And for this tournament next year, yeah.
Oh, okay. Man, just go.
Yeah. I love
Like,
it.
it's putting action to the want. I mean, everybody wants to go. I wanted to go, and Carlos had been not begging me like that, but just like, "Terry, you need to come see our country. You need to come to the tournament," year after year. And finally I said, "I'm just going to do this." And if I wouldn't have done that and put action to it, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and I wouldn't have been rewarded with such a great experience.
That's
Literally
fantastic.
just doing it. Like, you don't even have to know Spanish. Everyone there speaks just enough. I would suggest just getting on YouTube and listening to Spanish speakers and trying to learn some words out of respect, and you can get along, and you would have the best time ever.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, Terry, really appreciate your time with us this evening, letting us know about how that went. Tom, any last words, questions for you?
Yeah, Terry, I'm just curious. I know before we got on air, you mentioned that you've been achieving a certain goal. Can you tell us briefly about what you've been doing personally to improve yourself, not just as a foosball player, but generally?
Yes. So just at the beginning of the new year, my dietary habits were terrible. I was my vice was drinking Dr. Pepper or Mr. Pibb, and I was drinking 12 packs of these things. And being part of the Cajun culture, my wife is an excellent cook, and so she cooks rice and gravy or crawfish etouffee, and
Mm.
Terry plates and bowls of this. And just over the last couple of years, my shooting wrist, my right wrist was hurting. I just felt inflamed. I put on weight. I wasn't taking care of myself. And I just decided on my own that I was going to use like a P90X3 workout. I cut out all the sodas. I got past the headaches in about 4 days and just started eating better. I stopped sitting on the couch and grazing and just always finding a way to put something in my mouth and eat it. And I lost 22 pounds in a month and a half.
Wow.
And I actually didn't take a picture. I didn't get on the scale prior to it. I just wanted my clothes to fit better. And I wanted my t-shirts to fit better. I wanted to feel younger and fresher. And so I reached this goal just by pushing play every day and doing something and investing 30 minutes of workout time every day into myself. I don't hurt anymore. I'm flexible again. I feel like 15 years younger.
Cool.
And I like 2 workouts today, and my goal is to lose another 12 to 15 pounds. And yeah, that's kind of it. And it's revived my foosball game. I feel like myself
There you
20
go.
years ago.
So we're forewarning anybody who plays Terry Rue in the very near future, especially at any of the majors. Look out.
Anna?
I think so much of you and your whole family, and it's so cool to have you on the show and to have someone come on and not just talk about themselves, but talk about their experience in Costa Rica. Like
Mhm.
everything you said was so wholesome, and it's so nice to hear that. It's refreshing. Hey, Casey. Sorry. It's refreshing, and I just love that. I love that everyone was so nice. That's as someone who travels a bit, that's not something you get in every country or even in every state, and that's awesome. And I'm so glad that you went and you experienced it. Keisha and I were actually talking about it at kickoff, and she was like, Terry's going and I'm not going, and this is like the first time, and he's gonna have a hard time. And I was like, she's like, I'm gonna have to tell him it's fine, honey, just go have fun. So I know she was worried about you and hoping you would enjoy yourself. And I'm so glad that you did, and hopefully I will get to go next year and I'll be there with you.
That sounds like a plan.
Terry, any last words for anybody else out there before we sign off with you?
No, sir. Thank you for the invite. I enjoyed it, and I am available anytime.
That's awesome, Terry. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Oh, wait.
So
Terry, what's your next tournament? What's your next tournament?
Oh, Hall of Fame.
Oh, good. Okay, so we'll see you there.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So in Spanish, adios and nos vemos.
Thanks so much.
That's
Terry.
awesome.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was great. I'm really. Well, what the hell else can you say? How lucky are we all that we get to talk to a legend like that about an experience like that, and then our very next guest is another legend that has a whole nother experience lined up for the whole world of foosball coming up. That's Tommy Adkisson going to be chatting with us about Oklahoma State. Tommy, are you there?
I'm here.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you all hear Tommy?
We can.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tommy, you're here. You're joining us. We've got Oklahoma State this weekend. I'm coming. This is going to be my first one there. Really excited to be covering that with Foosball Sports Network. Tell us about what we're going to be expecting over the weekend.
Well, it's hard for me to follow up the deal that you just had there.
Well, no,
First,
Tommy.
I got on the wrong bus. I didn't know it was a PG show. I'm just kidding. I love Terry. I love that whole family. Adam, I'm glad you're coming too. I'm excited to have you.
I am so excited too, Tommy. But you got that. So you've got a lot going on this weekend. But one of the big things that I know that I've been seeing is the I'm a Bad Man singles.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a fundraiser for Johnny. We're trying to do it kind of like the old master singles format. I didn't want to just put a bucket at the desk or run some DYP.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something different and special.
So what is this? Because a lot of people probably don't know what the Masters format is like. The play.
It's a invitational event historically, just for the top 64 players in the world. At one time, we had that many Masters and pros that were active. You could qualify for it by placing ninth or better in open singles if you were an amateur or expert or an amateur. I think that happened one time, as far as I know. But this is kind of the same format. We're gonna have some invitees that will be in the tournament, and then other players will be able to play, but we're only going to take up to 64, and it's a minimum $100 donation for your entry fee.
Cool. Now, this last weekend, I don't know, Tommy, if you could hear me, but this last weekend on Foos Talk Live, we featured a full interview with Adam and Mike Green and Johnny Horton. And Johnny had a lot of things to say about you, my man. So, and one of the things that came up I thought was fascinating was that $1,000 that $1,000 game that you guys played, that match. It was you and Terry Moore versus Johnny Horton and Brendan Flaherty. Do you remember anything about that?
I remember a lot about it. None of it's good for me. Historically, I blocked Johnny really good. Probably better, as good, if not better than anyone. That wasn't the case in that match. He come out and he never set up the ball. Basically, he shot all rolling full shots on me. I don't
Wow.
think he could miss on purpose. That's how hot he was. I mean, they come out and Terry played. Terry played good enough. Brendan blocked him a little, but he had a lot of pressure on him. They got us 2-0, and we end up switching. We did come back to 3-3 in the fifth.
Right.
Terry blocked him a lot better than I did. I didn't block anything. I couldn't block a beach ball. But like I told you, historically, I blocked Johnny really good. He didn't do anything that he normally did, and I think that was his game plan going in. I don't have anything to lose. I'm going to hit him with the kitchen sink. Well, like I told you, we came back to 3-3. I blocked 3 passes at 3-3. Never got possession of it. He passed it, scored. We switched because Terry was passing and scoring good. I couldn't get any of the pressure off of him. He ended up having a shot to make it match ball. Brendan got it blocked. Johnny got it, passed it, scored it. That was the end of the match. Nothing real exciting for me.
Yeah, I getcha. No, it just seems like you guys had quite an interesting relationship. Was it love-hate? Was that what it was all about?
No, it wasn't love-hate. It was Johnny was that guy for me.
Yeah.
Most people have that one guy that they look up to, or they admire the game more than others. They model their game after. Didn't necessarily model my game after them, maybe parts of it. But I liked the intensity. I liked the showmanship. Sometimes he went, even for me, a little too far. But you know,
He was a man
all
of
of
he is
all
a
of us
man of
that are
extremes.
competitors cross lines that we wish we wouldn't at times. It's just he did it more than most. But the thing was, it didn't matter who was. If I was playing the finals on table 1 of the winners bracket, And it didn't matter. It didn't matter if he was 33rd in the losers. Guess where all the people were? They were around Johnny's match. And that goes for, it didn't matter. You know, you always knew where Johnny was playing. That's where all the people were at.
So, I'm a little younger and didn't get to see the whole full-fledged awesome matchups of the past. When was the first time you matched up against Johnny Horton? If you remember, in what tournament, and how did it go, and what did you think?
I was 12 or 13, and it was a big tournament. Johnny will tell you a different story, but he's forgetting parts. It was a tournament called the Midwest Regionals in Oklahoma City, my hometown, and it was like maybe a 15 or a 20 grander, and you know, we didn't have at that time. It wasn't common for us to have the bigger tournament. Now, not long after this, we had a lot of we had the nationals in Oklahoma City, and I mean, in the late '80s to early '90s, it wasn't uncommon to have 1,000 people at a world.
Wow.
You know, well,
Thousands.
I don't
Crazy.
1,000 players, you know, total strung out, not counting the people that came just because it was the world championship. You know,
God.
the money was a little better, but it still wasn't the '70s. And you're coming off of a slower time in foosball. You know, the mid '80s all the way up until the late '80s. You know, there's the Dynamo after TS. You know, and then you're going from the split world championships to Tornado taking over pretty much. Well, Dynamo, as far as I know, they didn't have no huge tournaments. You know what I mean? You went from the '70s when players were actually playing; they could play for a living. To these are the people, the diehards that are left. You know, and not to say the quality of play wasn't good, because it was. You had the guys that were the up and comers from the '70s, the late '70s, the Horton, Bacon, Murray, those guys. And offensively, it was a really good time for foosball because they were really good offensively. And coming off the Dynamo, it was a more finesse game. So they were more precise. They defensively, maybe they were not quite as good. The game hadn't evolved as much. I don't know. It's not fair to say because I wasn't there in the '70s.
I think, Tommy, that's a fair assertion that defensively, the game in the '70s was not what it was in the '80s, or each generation, each decade, especially
Yeah, and
defensively.
even the '80s, it wasn't what it was in the mid to late '90s.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I played in the '90s. It wasn't defensively in the '90s what it is today.
So, Tommy, this raises a question real quick for me, because we're talking about how effective defenses are and how they've evolved since the '70s, and I think that it reached the height in the probably the early aughts, 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I feel like there's a lot of new players now that are doing really well, but if you went and shot a pull kick on them, you'd smoke them. Does that sound like, you know what I mean? Like anything that's a little bit off, that's not your standard pull or your standard rollover is just not going to be recognized as something you can how to block for the newer players.
Well, there's not a lot of those kick shots.
Yeah.
They don't get to see them. I got to see them because there was still quite a bit of those guys around. The a pull kick, a good set pull kick shooter. I mean, I can't think of one that plays.
Right.
We had several. We had Doobie. We had Thor.
Sure.
There was just a bunch of them. But Marpu, he wasn't really a set pull kick shooter, but the guy had a monster pull kick.
Yeah.
There was, I could probably sit here and drum them up for who knows how long, and then push kicks. Of course, you had Jeep,
Mm-hmm.
if they want to call that a push kick. Great leggings, Harley Park. That's a push kick.
Harley Park. Yeah.
I'm sure that I don't. Oh, Ken Allwell.
Yep.
Ken
Yep.
Allwell.
Kenny.
He played in the '90s, which was from the '70s. I know how good his push kick was in the '90s. I can only imagine how good it was in the '70s. A guy that came back after he won the biggest singles tournament ever, and I was fortunate enough to draw him in the DYP at Colorado State one year. And it was a huge draw, and there was a lot of good teams that had drawn each other. And I remember drawing them and finding out who it was, and being very excited just to have the opportunity to play with him. And his name was Rick Martin.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
I thought he was going to struggle a little bit with the rollovers, like most people do from the '70s. And he did. He had a little bit of a hard time the first match we played. After that, the guy was a competitor, and I mean, I could see it. Not that offensively, because we played, like I told you, there was a couple of really good teams in the tournament, and I think Billy had drawn Mares was one, and I could be wrong. It could have been Billy and someone else, but I know we played both of them, and both of them either they drew each other or they both had good draws. Either way, we had matches where we got in trouble and we switched. Well, we didn't lose a match, and I really felt like we didn't lose anything. I felt like we got stronger when we did switch. And he played phenomenal. And I just remember he had that intensity and that fire in it, of that's all the greats do. But here's a guy that's playing in the late '90s that won in 76, 77? 77?
Yeah.
Was it 77, Adam?
Yeah. No, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And here's this guy now, and if I didn't know any better, I'd say it was 1977. By the way, I heard later on that Rick played college level baseball, and man, it showed because the guy was a competitor in every essence of the word.
So, I know we're supposed to be talking about Oklahoma State, and I definitely want to get to that. But this is just such a special moment for me to get some insight from you, Tommy, because I think so much of your game, and I learn something every time I play with you or play against you. But the one thing that stands out to me, if anyone asks me on any day, Hannah, what about 5-bar defense? Who could really shut some 5 bars down? It's you all day, every day. And I've been on your team watching you do that to other players, and I've been on the opposite side watching you just shut them down. And I've spoke with Kathy about it a lot, and I was like, does he do this to everyone? And she's like, yeah, it's fine. And I was like, okay. But do you get that experience from, knowing and having that 5-bar defense from seeing so much through so many decades of foosball and so much different play throughout those decades? Or if you have any advice or thoughts on 5-bar defense, I'm open to anything you've got, because I really think you are the best in the world at 5-bar defense.
Boy, it's quite a compliment. Uh, and I wish that I could take all the credit for it. If you'll go and you'll look at like the '93 Worlds when I beat Terry in the finals of singles, you'll see a raw uh, someone that's just playing off of their speed, that hasn't really learned how to use that speed to their advantage. Um, kind of like a raw Brandon Muniz.
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing him and thinking, man, I beat him the first couple times I played him, and pretty soundly in singles. Well, I haven't beat him since. I remember thinking, man, when this kid learns how to use his speed,
Yeah.
he's going to be dangerous. I was lucky enough to be in the van with one of the greatest minds ever in foosball. Uh, Unfortunately, his hands and his brain didn't really work together as well as some people. But that was Evan Stottswood. And if
Mm.
he's ever honest, he'll tell you that he was a big part of both of our developments. Um, I was I was sponge enough to, when it was his turn to drive, instead of sleeping because it was going to be my turn to drive. Not too long after that, I was the guy in the front seat listening to whatever Evan would give me. And he taught me about parts of the game that I didn't even know existed. And that's how I learned about ball position, um, how to read what people were going to do on the 5 before they even knew what they were going to do, from the way where they would get. Sometimes people get where they can't do anything but one thing, or they they have tells. You know, they only can do an up from this position. If they have it this way, there's lots of different things you can pick up on if you know what to look for.
And this was something that you got from Evan. And what it sounds like you're saying is that he showed you that being observant, especially defensively, is key or very important.
Well, okay, so I always would study players, but necessarily there was things that I could have been watching that would have made it even easier. But we don't know what we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was fortunate enough to be around Evan and get all that knowledge he had without having to put in the experience part of it
Mm.
to get, I got all that knowledge. And Evan was absolutely, his foosball IQ was off the chart. Um, yeah, he doesn't have the major um, wins on tour uh, to validate the foosball brain, but he has a lot. He has a lot. Maybe not majors, but regional tournaments and a lot of finals in majors.
So I
It's
think this age of foosball is just missing a part of that. Personally, Bracklin's getting into the game. Okay, cool. Well, I'm passing all over him, and he wants to figure out 5-bar defense, or he's in a match, and I say go do this, and it'll block their 5 if they do this, and he's like, okay. He goes and does it, and it works. But afterwards, he's like, why did you think that? Well, I have a hard time translating to explain to him why I told him to do that because I saw this or that. It's more just like reactionary to me, and I have a hard time getting that point across. But I feel like players that like Bracklin that are just getting into the game, or like myself even, I haven't got to experience the push kick, the true pull sets, that kind of game without a rollover. So I didn't know how that translates learning, through different decades. But I think foosball and my age group are missing someone that would say, hey, kids, this is what, kind of sit you down and give you some of that knowledge that they have that we just don't have. And I think once we find that it would really, take off. But there's so many players that are very talented these days that don't have a brain. And I think it hasn't always been that way. You know what I mean? Like you go back and you look and you're like, well, they weren't really that talented, but dang, they won so much. And it's such a different aspect to me. And I'm not downplaying anyone's games or wins or losses or anything like that. I'm including myself in that because I struggle to teach Bracklin, but I can just do it. But I think there needs to be a bridge, and I think it's missing something there.
You're absolutely right, Hannah. And the thing is, um, we all process differently, and it takes someone that understands. Not everyone can do things the same way as you can, but if you can, a leader, whenever they build their team, what they're best at is getting the best out of each individual, putting them where they can excel the most. No matter which ones, maybe this guy has way more to offer, but you want to put this guy that has less to offer where you can get the most out of. Well, it's the same thing with trying to teach people. You have to figure out what they can do, what's how they can learn, and how they can use it to apply it to their game. You know, 5-bar D. Can you teach me 5-bar D? I've heard that more. Uh, I wish I had a nickel for every time I've been asked that. Okay. And honestly, I wish there was a simple answer to it, but there just isn't. There's so many different things to it, so many different layers. But what you can do is give someone a good foundation to start from. I remember Tony used to ask me a lot, man, when are you going to teach me something about 5-bar D? Yeah, are you going to teach me something about if I had 5-bar D, I'd never lose. If I just had that partier 5-bar D, I'd never lose. Well, uh, mine, I thought, well, I don't know about all that. Well, maybe it was on to something. And he, as great as Tony is, uh, he he can't. I'm not gonna say he can't. It's not. He doesn't like it, and it's not comfortable for him to look for tails. So for him with 5-bar D, it was better for him to figure out if he could race something. All right, and start depending on how fast their wall was or how fast their up was. Heat one and the other one that he could race to more, race to it. Okay, and if he figures out he can kind of race to both, I don't suggest this for like someone that doesn't have that kind of speed to hang out in the gray zone and race both passes. But Tony has that kind of speed if their pass is raceable like that. Whenever you can't beat a guy to either hole, it makes for a bad outing. a very frustrating outing for someone on the side. And someone can put 3 points on you before you know it. All of a sudden, they were hanging closer to the wall. You go up, they come out and spike it right in the goal. Whether they don't even come out there ever again, it's going to make someone timid of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
For anybody that's listening, trying to get some nuggets of wisdom here from Tommy. I think that Tommy's, what you're saying isn't A, B, C, this is how you win. What you're saying is that I think everybody is different, unique, has their own skill set and ability, and playing to those strengths and weaknesses. And knowing oneself is part of
Well,
coming to
I,
that point, right?
I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say. So if you're playing goalie, and not everyone processes the same way. Some people, uh, they look at the hole. They have a hole in mind that they're either timing or watching for. Well, then they already have a backup hole if that doesn't come right. And they want A. If it's not, if they don't see what they want, then B is an audible, right? Um, some people have to shoot that way. Some people actually time the hole. Some people, it's they get people to react to things. There's all different ways that people can attack. Okay, and hopefully you have one of those things. Okay, you're not going into every match like it's a completely new adventure. Because if you don't have a plan of attack or not, and I won't mention any names, um, but if match ball is the same as the first ball to you, you're probably not going to win too much. Either you're one of the luckiest people to ever play the game, or you're those when those big points come up and you don't already know what's there, and you haven't been, you're not aware of what's going on in the match, and you don't work around things, or you're at match ball and oh, well, what did I do? I mean, that moment's going to be too big more often than not.
So, Tommy, one of the things that we've always had, I guess it's like an inside joke of you always watching matches. During the Johnny Horton interview this last weekend on Foos Talk Live, he said very clearly that Tommy Adkisson, I would notice him in the crowd. He'd be watching me like a hawk. And so you always were, I guess you could say, a professional spectator, aside from being a pro master player, but a professional spectator. So what are you
Okay,
watching when you're watching these players so intently and watching every match? What are you gaining from that?
okay, you got to remember, in the beginning, we didn't have inside foosball. We couldn't
Got
sit
it.
at home in our skivvies and study players, right?
True.
Okay, so the only place that we got that was by actually watching the match. Now, that aside, I'm a I'm a I'm a fan too.
Yes.
You know, uh, first and foremost, really, I love foosball. I'm a fan of the game. I'm also someone that will study. So it's the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
and I find I find different matches, and some matches that some people wouldn't maybe wouldn't watch. I find
Hmm.
interesting. So that's why you may see me at watching the finals of amateur doubles or the
Cool.
semifinals of whatever.
Women's
Um,
doubles.
I'm not saying that, Hannah. Yeah, I wouldn't
No,
dare.
I was saying that because you did watch the finals of
And I
women's
do watch
doubles.
a
I
lot. I
remember
do
it.
watch a lot of women's matches.
And I usually try to pick your brain afterwards, or you'll just be like, you're running the dumbest defense, but it was working. I don't know what was going on. And then, or, I always can get some kind of, insight from you. So anytime you watch my matches afterwards, I'm always trying to pick your brain and see what you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know there's been quite a bit of that whenever we've talked about things. I know one thing that I've noticed with you that you've changed. I remember I used to tell you, hey, if it's not broke, why would you fix it? If you were doing something that was
Yeah.
working, and a lot of players do this. They're doing something and it's working. All right. Uh, why would you change it until they made you change it?
Mm.
Because as humans, we're creatures of habit, anyways. It's so hard not to. You have to learn to not do the same things or react the same way. Um, you have to train yourself not to do that. It's not easy.
That's the discipline
Sure.
of the game for sure.
And like you mentioned, watching matches is so cool because you never know who you'll be standing next to. And they might be, an amateur, an expert, or whatever. I don't even care about ranking. But you can stand there and, I might see something, and Billy Joe beside me might see something. And we might have a conversation about, did you think he meant to do that? Or, was he timing that switch? Or like something like that. And that might teach you something about that person's game or even about your own game. So I'm a fan of foosball too, Tommy. And I love watching foosball and talking about foosball even with randoms that I don't even know. So I've learned a lot through my years that way because I don't have someone like you or, many influences in my life for foosball here. It's just me and Bracklin. And we're smart and we can figure stuff out, but it's just the two of us now. We don't have a whole lot of guidance. So we watch some film and we figure things out on our own, and he's great at it. But anytime you can get an outside perspective, I think is always beneficial to your game for sure.
And um, you are smart enough and humble enough to realize that, hey, the minute that I think I can't learn anything, when you know it all, that's when you need to quit.
True that.
Because
True that.
you should be able to take something away from any match you play, win, lose, watch, whether it's what not to do. There's something that can be learned by anything, any match you play, any match you watch.
Okay, so Oklahoma State, talk to me. Give me the rundown. Where are we at? How many people are coming? What are we excited about most? Tell me about it.
Hannah, man, I have no idea how many people are coming. I'll tell you, last
Awesome.
year we had somewhere around 150, 140 to
Nice.
150. I think we're gonna have quite a few more than that this year. I wouldn't. I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be completely surprised if we had 225.
Nice.
225. So
Very nice.
what are the monster teams? What are the big teams to be watching for this weekend?
Well, I guess that's a matter of opinion, right?
Yeah. Well, in your opinion.
Well, Ryan and Brandon.
Mhm.
That's gotta be a one of the favorites, right?
Munoz and Ryan Moore?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like them I like them as being one of the favorites in any tournament they play in.
Oh yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to play with Tony. We have a pretty
Cool.
good track record, you know. I'll jump in his backpack. I have no problem with that. You know, but uh, me and Tony, we've always played pretty well together. Um, we've only ever not won one time, and that was a pretty bad tournament for me. I was terrible. It was early on. You know, he was already good, but not nearly as good as he is now, and I was plumb terrible that tournament. I think we got third. I'm not sure how many times we played together. Maybe 10, 12, hell, maybe more. I don't know.
Now, when it comes down to being a promoter of an event like this, and of course it's been growing, um, compare this to last year as opposed to this year. First of all, what is it you did last year you're not never going to do again, or decided not to do this year? And what's new for this year for Oklahoma State?
Hmm. What's new? Wow. There's not a whole lot new, really.
Okay,
It's the same location. We're gonna have a little more room than we had last time. Set up a little different.
cool.
Adam's definitely gonna be new.
Yeah.
There you go.
Never had Adam there.
Looking forward to it.
Every tournament that we have, I try to get as many people involved, or my job is to shake hands and kiss baby, right? My part of it. Okay. And that's what I try to do. You know, unfortunately, that isn't my only role. It's supposed to be my role. But you know, you do what you have to do. Yeah, everybody does. Um, a foosball promoter. Uh, they're not. I don't know any that are getting rich and never have. Um,
Mhm.
it's a labor of love. You know, but we're trying to do something good for foosball. I think here the culture, the grassroots thing that it's survived on in the U.S. for so long. I
Mhm.
don't I don't think it can stay that way. We're all of us, um, like my generation, um, all of us are 50. All right, and there's already second and third generation players. Well, there's no game rooms. There's no. There is, the youth deal in the schools, but without some kind of culture change in the U.S. and uh, change is not easy for people. Okay, it's a lot of people don't like change. They'd rather have more of what they know and nothing grow. Foosball was like that here for a long time. Um, I think that the culture is changing. As bad as COVID was for the whole country, I think it actually foosball benefited from it.
You're right.
Okay,
Yeah, new
but
energy.
and technology advancing, you know
Mm.
that has a lot to do with foosball having a little more buzz right now around it. Well, if you'll think back to before COVID, it was pretty rough. It's good now, but without us doing something and staying with that positive forward motion, I think it's it's gonna be tough. It's different overseas. For several reasons. I think that you're gonna have to see a club here in the U.S.
Oh, no doubt.
And it's gonna have to happen pretty soon because there's not a lot of young people playing. All the young ones that are playing are second, third generation. And so,
Absolutely.
are we going to rely on the fourth, fifth, and sixth generation? I just don't see it without getting more young people into the game. And it's hard. It's hard to get young players now because you're either gonna have the major tournament in the hotels where it's expensive for families to get in. Okay, and if your younger kids aren't already playing, why are you going to spend that money if they're
Mhm.
not already interested? Unless you played, got on with life. Now your kids are getting older, and you can go. You have some of that, or you have the empty nesters coming back. But honestly, there's a little bit of that, but there's not enough of it. I just, I just think that the culture is going to have.
Yeah, it's a fundamental shift for sure. One of the things that we always talk about is about just doing something. Now, I'm gonna throw out an example there. When it comes to last year's tornado championships, I met in one of the tournament events, young man by the name of Reed Rector. Do you recognize that name, Tommy?
I do.
Read.
And I have to say, for a beginner, he was pretty stellar. And of course, when I talked to him and found out he was, one of your crew, I thought, okay, that makes sense. That's why he's so good at this level. And we've since become good friends, and he's also a Patreon supporter of Foosball Radio. But I got to say, man, way to go, because this young guy plays some mean foosball.
Do you? I don't know if you know. Reed won the beginners doubles at that World Championship.
Yes, he did. Yes, he
So,
did.
fun fact, we met
I
Reed.
don't think he had been playing 6 months at that
Right.
time.
Yeah, we met him and we went and cheered for the last 3 matches of Reed's. Like, we met him randomly and he was just a really nice guy. And then we
Hmm.
went and cheered him on all the way through the losers bracket to the final. And like, we were like cheering absurdly loud, not even just like, woohoo, go Reed. It was like 10 of us, all of the clowning, every time they did anything remotely great, we would cheer. But like, we also had another cheering squad for the other team because we would just kind of split so everyone wasn't like totally, like boo, whatever. But he killed it. I love some Reed Rector. That's
Yep.
awesome.
Reed
Good
is
guy.
he's infectious, man. He's always got a smile on his face.
Yep.
I don't know how you could not like the guy. It's like I was telling someone earlier today, if Terry Rue's in an argument, guess what? You can bet that other person is wrong. You know? And Reed's kind of that way. I put him in the same league as Terry when it comes to that.
Yes.
He's a lot
Super
younger.
nice guy.
Uh, Terry's a little older, but they remind me of each other a little.
Yep.
Except for Reed's always got a smile. Terry's always got, when he's playing, he's always got that intensity. But he's so pumped up, and I just know one of these days Terry's head's gonna pop in the middle of a match. But he's that intense, and it's actually pure, you know.
It is.
And he's 50 years old. It's pretty cool to watch, to see that intensity, and I've seen it for many years. You know, it hasn't never changed. It's always been pure there, and one tournament to the next, after all the years, is still the same.
Yeah.
That's not easy,
Yeah.
I promise you.
So
But for
besides
him, it's
Reed
easy
Rector,
because he's so pure.
so besides Reed Rector, any other people you want to warn us about who might be coming out of your crew there?
I'm not gonna snitch on my guys. I'm not gonna give them up. I will tell you that that same tournament, we had one of our locals and a gentleman that had moved here for foosball not long before that, that was a beginner when he moved here from North Carolina, win amateur doubles at the same tournament that Reed won beginner
Nice.
doubles. The world champion amateur doubles players were from here too. And that was Jason Brooks and Craig Topham.
Cool.
Oh, Craig.
Two of they're two very nice guys too. We're really fortunate. We at one time Oklahoma maybe wasn't known for having a great culture in foosball. I remember at a time when I was starting, you know, it was pretty common if you won the tournament, you got at least 2 fights that night. You know, yeah, I try my best for these guys not to have for them to have a positive culture. You know, and I'm very aware of the, you know, of that. Yeah, because man, first and foremost, you're giving up your time. Uh, if people are coming to play, you don't know what they had to do to be there. If they had to pay a babysitter, if it was, you know, their couple's date night, they're at your tournament. You don't know, you know. So I think you shouldn't treat anyone like an asshole. Shouldn't be rude to people. Maybe they're not as. Maybe you don't think they're as good as you, and you draw them, and you're a prick to them. All that stuff. I've seen it all. I never really understood it because whenever you treat a newer player that way, it's like, well, you don't remember when you were that guy? I know I do.
Oh yeah.
And that's the way I've always tried to be. And that's the way I want my local guys to be. You know, hopefully I can lead by example. You know, and that's more important to me than anything nowadays. You know,
It's working.
Well, it's definitely a lot better culture to play in. You know, but the whole culture of foosball has changed. You know, it's a lot better now. I'm not saying that I necessarily like the golf clap. If you move, reset, did you jar me? You know, I think you should be able to move on defense. You know, I think you should be able to show emotion. That's what
Mm-hmm.
That's what gets people to watch, and it's what keeps you. It's entertaining. It's but I think there's no place for personal attacks and crossing those lines.
Right.
I'm fine with even talking, and back and forth game shit, but I'm not okay with one person doing it and another person not being covered. And I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah.
If it's two people in there, if it's me and Bobby, or something along those lines, right? We both like it. You know, we like to talk to each other. We like to give each other a little bit of smack talking, right? And we go back and forth. One thing I can tell you is after the match, no matter who wins, we're shaking hands, and then we're in the bar together.
Mm-hmm.
Lose or draw. And I think it should be that way.
Yeah, and Tommy, that's an interesting point, because I grew up in playing foosball the way that my parents played foosball in the 70s, and they were it was the extreme, right? Like my dad was a promoter, and he took the foosball van out, the tournament soccer foosball van, all across the Pacific Northwest, down into Texas, Oklahoma, and up into Minnesota, and they were getting beer bottles thrown at them and all that kind of stuff. The promo team, right? And that was one end of the spectrum, but the other end of the spectrum was still the whole, being respectful and showing respect to the players that you're playing against, And so I grew up in the synthesis of what my dad dealt with in the 70s. I dealt with in the 80s, and so my father would talk shit to me as I was a 7-year-old, right? But there is nothing, especially when I was competing, there was nothing you could do to me that would rattle me ever after having your dad, say the things that he would say to me, as he would continually dink over and over and over again to close out matches on a Friday night barbecue thing, right? But that does not, I think, it doesn't seem like it exists as much now. And it's interesting what you're talking about, because you're talking about that line between the competitive nature and talking, but also just like full blown disrespect, and that's when you get your ass kicked.
No place for disrespect,
Right.
or even I didn't realize actually, Adam. I never knew that Steve Murray was your dad.
Neither did Steve, Tommy.
He's everybody's dad.
Well, I didn't think that when you started telling me about it.
This is an episode of Maury Povich over here. Now he knows.
Listen, I had I guess maybe we'll say tough love. We'll call it that, right?
Yeah.
I dealt with Steve. I dealt with Rusty. Those are, and there was a lot of those guys when I was learning and coming up. And like I told you, I was fortunate enough to get in that van with Terry and Evan. But before that, it wasn't. People didn't share things. They didn't share knowledge that they had. They guarded it, and maybe it was because they did play for real money in the 70s, and any knowledge that you had, because you're talking about close to the beginning of the game, right? So anything you figure out new or this or that, well, you got one up on someone until they figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're now the game evolves. Everything evolves. That's why when people try to compare eras, I don't think it can be done. Well, there's no doubt that uh, foosball has never had the athletes that they had in the 70s. Okay, but no other eras played for that kind of money either. you know, um, even in the 90s, we were putting in the table time, maybe not like they did in the 70s, but we put in a lot of table time. You're not really seeing that table time put in now. And I understand why. Because, yeah, what are you going to do? There's not, you're gonna put in 10 hours a day for a game that if you go and you win everything, you might get half your money back.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's tough. But people do it for the love of the game and the competition. And I really admire the people that are putting in all that time and that effort, and giving up whatever sacrifices that they're making. Because I know how it was for me, and there was a lot more players and a lot more money for me than in the early to mid 90s. But I could not make a living doing it.
Well, I think we should probably start wrapping up here. But before we get into that, Tom, any last questions or thoughts or anything for Tommy?
Well, first of all, Tommy, just thank you. Thank you for doing what you do, supporting
Thanks for
this
having me.
sport for so many years. It's astounding to see people like yourself who are so selfless and giving everything you've got, and keep watching the game, man.
Yeah, they'll probably be willing me up to the end of the table one day.
I love it.
Sure.
100% believe that.
Yeah, I do too. As much as I don't want to, it's probably what'll happen.
Hannah?
But
Oh, sorry, Tommy. Go ahead.
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
So I've got a few things here, but most of them are relatively quick. My first question is, Tommy, when is the first time that you used the stationary man defense and got a block and hollered that at someone at a tournament?
Okay. Stationary man came along because me and my buddy Bobby, we like to gamble. He liked to gamble, but we couldn't play singles. We had to figure out a way that he could play against me, right? Well, stationary man was it. I thought I liked it, and obviously he thought it was a big enough spot that we could gamble in singles. Stationary man never turned out good for Bobby, and that's where it came from.
Awesome. That's a funsy that we do at our house. So just had to ask that. But a few things for me, Tommy, you're just legendary to me. And you have been for a while, since I came back into the game. I knew your name because of my dad, and it's just you know your name when you walk in the room. But little thing about me is before Worlds last year, I went down and stayed with the Ruse for a week, and we kind of got ready and trained and all. But one of our favorite things is sitting on the couch, kicking it and hanging out, but not watching any new foosball. Just go watch old foosball. And it's so nostalgic, and you see so many cool things, and watching you back then it's just so cool to go and watch videos of you then, and then see you in a week at Worlds, and you're still playing, and you're still doing some of the things you did then, and your game has transitioned so well. And that's just special to me. That's important to me. So keep being awesome. That's super cool. And I can't say that about many players that are, they stood out so much to me then and still do now. And I know one of the reasons that you stand out to me now is from watching you play and playing against you and whatever, playing with you, all of it is your accountability. I never question when I'm playing with you or against you if that jar was true. You're not going to whine about it. You're not a baby, and that's so enjoyable at the master level to have someone that you can trust with, if you jarred me, you're going to give me the ball back. Like, I truly believe that, and I think it's accountability. And I think when I have played with you or against you, I've seen that play out really well every time. And I appreciate that. And, that ties into your leadership style with your foosball scene, in Oklahoma. The amateurs and beginners you have are really strong and they have great attitudes and they love foosball. Like, and you're so iconic as a player and as a tournament director there that, if you have that attitude of getting them into this game with love and, not kind of shooting them down and building them up, then that's exactly what the sport's needing. And I think that's huge. And, one of my favorite ones was like the Weidman and Tommy Singles world title. Like, Bracklin, he just texted me. He was like, mention it. You have to. It's our favorite one. So like that's one that was a big deal for us. So you're just iconic in my eyes. And I think you're doing great things in Oklahoma. And I appreciate any time that you have anything to say to me or to us as a foosball community, and keep being awesome.
Thank you, Hannah. I think some of the same things about you. You're the future of the game. One of the future. You guys are going to be what us guys are. You're already there, but people are going to you, Sullivan, Sam, if he would keep playing, who knows what's going to happen there, and I know you're older than Sam and them, but it's the next, um, one time it was us and then Billy Tony, but well, now they're old guys now too. Well, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Um,
This
what?
yeah.
They're both what? In their 40s now. 40.
Getting there.
Something like that.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember Billy when he won in the U.S. Open. He was 9 years old,
Oh
and I
yeah.
thought he was so little. Hell, that was as we get older, that gap is not as big as it once was. You know, uh, the the younger guys are now older guys with. And yes, Tony, Billy, you're right there on my doorstep.
Well, Tommy, I'm gonna before I close out and give the floor to you for any last words. I do want to say that 6-7 months ago, I started saying if you want to do something with foosball and make foosball anything better than it is now, you have to do something. You can't hide behind a keyboard and be a anonymous keyboard warrior. You have to do something. And the reason why I started saying that was really through the example you've shown me. Behind the scenes, I know only a small amount of what it is that you do. I've been fortunate to be involved in some of the things that I know that you do behind the scenes, Tommy. Um, that's obviously between you and I, but the bottom line is that I know what you do. And if anybody wants to make foosball better, it's not sitting around trying to figure out why foosball's not cornhole, because it ain't cornhole and it never will be cornhole. Get up off your ass and do something. If you want foosball to be better, be more like Tommy Adkisson. Is all I'm going to say. Just do it. Just get out there and do it.
Right. Um, you don't ever hit any of those ones you don't swing at.
100%.
You got to swing. You got to swing to hit one.
Yep.
And we're just hoping to hit one.
Yeah.
Hit some, and hopefully that's what we do, and hopefully we have an impact on keeping this game that all of us love so much alive here, you know, for the next generation, the generation after that.
Amen, Tommy.
Yes.
Any last words before we do our little sign off thing? Our own oh my gosh, our own end. The floor is yours, Tommy.
I just keep moving on. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you, Tommy. And I'm
Anytime, man. It's a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Tommy.
looking forward to seeing you in a few days, buddy. It's gonna be a great one.
All right, buddy. I look forward to seeing you. Bye,
Yep.
Hannah. Bye, Tom.
Bye, Tommy.
Bye
Tommy,
bye.
had the best tournament ever, man.
Bye.
Wow. Damn it.
Something else.
What the hell do
Something
you
else.
do? I mean, I know that our whole shtick is we talk about foosball tournaments, but when Tommy Adkisson is on,
Here's my overall impression of what we just heard. If Tony Sprademan is the Han Solo of foosball, then I would say that Tommy Adkisson is the Yoda of foosball.
who's Han Solo?
Han Solo from Star Wars?
I'm kidding. I know.
You're doing this to me again.
I am.
But
yeah.
no,
Okay. So Tommy Adkisson's Yoda.
Yoda. I mean, he's.
I cannot
he's the
get that out
one,
of my head.
Right?
I want to get some Yoda ears for
Me.
Tommy this weekend. I just want him to be like,
Because he's just so zen.
dude, it is. I mean, Hannah, when you asked him the question about the 5-bar, he like totally pivoted and started talking about Evan Stachlik. And I don't know if you've ever seen Evan play or ever talked to Evan. Evan is brilliant, but the way that the thing that Tommy said is that Evan's hands didn't catch up with his brain or something like that, right? And that is so
Yeah.
that is so brilliant. That is so true. You know, holy man, that was wow.
Yeah, I felt bad kind of drifting from like Oklahoma State prep, but you know, anytime you have somebody that legendary and like you have Terry Rue on
Yes.
here about things, it doesn't always have to surround, you
ain't.
know. We've already kind of, you know what I mean? So I just felt like
yeah.
I don't hope everybody's kind of listening, but man, if you're here, you just heard some wisdom. You just heard some 5-bar D stuff, some, you know,
Mhm.
legendary old stuff that's coming back and you know how to get
Deep.
foosball going. So
Very
super
deep.
cool.
That was I'm gonna get chills. I got chills. I have chills. They're multiplying. I don't know. Wow.
Well, I know
What do you know?
you've done it again. Another great FoosWeek.
You? We.
Captain.
I don't.
We're just rowing the boat.
No, man.
That's
No. The boat doesn't have mortar in it unless you've whatever. Anyways. So all right. So I'm gonna be at Oklahoma State this weekend. And
Yes, you are.
we're gonna be chatting. Oh shoot. I meant to say this earlier. Damn it. I meant to say this to Tommy because I thought he'd find this really interesting. Foos Talk Live Hall of Fame series continues this Sunday. We
Mhm.
are going to have Cal Rogers on there. And I don't think anybody understands the importance of actually having Cal Rogers on there. He's a Hall of Famer. I think class of 2011.
Mhm.
Pardon me. I had pizza tonight. Bad idea.
Especially
Cal
if it's Pizza
Rogers.
Hut.
Cal Rogers is the architect of the $1 Million Tour for
Wow.
tournament soccer. Shoot, I should have said that to Tommy. He would have totally gotten a kick out of it. Tommy's the biggest foosball nerd. No, but he is the architect of the tournament. Like everything that we know that we talk about when we talk about foosball back then with our rose tinted glasses comes from that. Cal Rogers,
Wow.
and Ken Allwell and those people. But Cal Rogers and Lee Peppard were the big part of that. So I'm gonna hope I can somehow figure out how to get on that episode from Oklahoma. I might.
We'll let you in.
Yeah.
We'll make a little space for you.
Good. No, but I mean, I just have to like run back or whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't know.
Anna, is that okay? Do you think we gotta have Adam come back?
We could squeeze him in somewhere. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, I just wanted to double check.
Yeah,
Make sure.
whatever it takes. But California Fooster. By the way, Twitch, there's been a couple. There's been like two people that Mike Green chatted, Goofy Fun Guy chatted, and now California Fooster chatted on Twitch. And I'm sorry, there wasn't a lot of chatter going on because I think y'all just wanted to hear like two of the greatest players in the history of foosball talk to us. And,
Got that impression.
But anyways, all right. Oh my gosh, I just blabbered so much. Yeah. So Oklahoma State this weekend, gonna be fun. Next Tuesday, we're gonna have somebody from Wisconsin State. We have to ask around, but that'll be fun too. So I don't know. I don't know. Hannah, what's on your mind? I saw you taking notes.
Oh, I was just writing down the certain matches that stood out to him. That's cool. I want to go watch that again.
Yeah.
You know, we watched our old 90s foosball, and pretty much anything on Inside Foos that's older than, you know, like 2010, we watched it. And we talk about it, and that's cool. So I'm a nerd for that kind of thing. And I was just making sure that, you know, as he was talking, I was thinking of things that I wanted to bring up to him and, you know, that I wanted people to hear about. You know, I think it's super cool that we have leaders like that in foosball. Terry Rue, great leader. You know, he just never put anybody down. He's always picking everybody up and dragging you to some kind of positivity about your game. I mean, that's just how he is.
Yep.
And with Tommy doing the same thing, like that's just phenomenal. And you have to have those leaders at the top treating people that way, or no one will want to keep playing. So it's just like, you know, I've seen that at a small level with the leaders not being true leaders, and it doesn't usually pan out well, and it doesn't make people want to be there and enjoy it. And it's not a cool thing to see in softball or foosball or whatever. You know, it's just not cool. So I really appreciate and respect people who are at the top of their games and are at the top of the game total, you know, like in a whole. They're awesome. They're at the top of the game, and they're still humble enough to be nice to people getting into the game and think about others instead. You know, they could go and flex on everybody they wanted to. They could just be complete meanies if they wanted to, but they're not. They want you to come and play, and they understand that it's bigger than themselves, and that just means a lot to me. That's all.
They have an innate love of the sport itself, and when you love something, you want to share it.
Yes.
Sure. And if you don't, by the time you're where they are, then something's wrong. You've missed it, baby.
Right. Ooh, I like that. All right. So I think we should probably wrap up here. But Tom, any last words, thoughts, impressions, concerns, consonants?
Just looking forward to what you were saying about Foos Talk Live this weekend with Cal Rogers. I mean, the Hall of Fame series continues, and Hannah will be back, and we'll be hearing from Adam from Oklahoma State and Jim Stevens. So looking forward to that. I think we're going to have a great time, and there you have it. Yet another episode.
Hannah?
I think I've said enough.
Yeah.
Just super glad to be a part of it. I've had a great time chatting with everybody, and can't wait for the next one as always.
Me either. Well said. Thank you, everybody out there in Twitch land that were listening and maybe not chatting. Thank you, everybody else that will listen to this later the next couple days. Thank you, Tommy Adkisson. Thank you, Terry Rue, Hannah Smith, Tom Robinson. Until next time, this is FoosWeek.